Colombia. Fabio is speaking to Don Luis, a drug lord and his boss. Fabio wants to quit. Don agreed at first, but then he tells Marco to shoot Fabio, saying no one leaves the cartel. The night was supposed to be their escape to freedom. Fabio Restrepo, a former right hand for the ruthless drug lord Don Luis, had seen enough bloodshed. He wanted out, not just for himself, but for his wife, Alicia, and their young daughter, Catalia. But in their world, no one simply walked away. As they hurriedly packed their bags in a dimly lit house in Bogotá, Fabio knelt before his daughter, his hands firm but gentle on her shoulders. His eyes, filled with urgency, searched hers. "Catalia, listen to me," he said, pressing a tiny microchip into her palm. "If something happens to us, go to the U.S. Embassy. Give them this. They will help you." The little girl, wise beyond her years, nodded. Fabio said, "We should go now." But the killer squad was already arrived. It was already too late. A deafening crash shattered the tense silence. The door burst open, and men on the gates were shot down. Inside, Fabio and Alicia draw their weapons to fight back, but they were shot down immediately. While they were laying down inches apart, the squad get inside. Leading them was Marco, Don Luis's most ruthless enforcer, his expression as cold as death itself. Catalia froze in horror, her small fingers gripping the table's edge. Marco turned to her, his piercing gaze locking on to the terrified child. But she wasn't waiting for death. Marco demanded the microchip from her, but the girl was more than that. She grabbed a knife from under the table and lodged it into Marco's hand. In a flash, she bolted, weaving through the house with the agility of a wildcat. Reaching the kitchen, Marco cursed and chased after her, but Catalia was too fast. She launched herself out of a window, landing hard on the floor below, swallowing the microchip. Ignoring the pain in her knees, she ran. She sprinted through the chaotic streets of Bogotá, her heart pounding like a war drum. Dogs barked, car horns blared, but all she heard was the echo of her parents' final screams. At last, the U.S. Embassy loomed ahead. The towering metal gates were guarded, but she didn't slow down. With a desperate leap, Catalia gave the guard the card with the name of the embassy officer on it. She then was brought inside. The officer asked if she had something to give him. Then she did the unthinkable. Catalia opened her mouth, forcing herself to gag. The microchip, now coated in bile, fell onto the table. She held it up, and gave it to the embassy officer. The microchip contained secrets, evidence of Don Luis's sprawling empire of crime. For the Americans, it was gold. For Catalia, it was the key to her new life. They put her on a plane to the United States, alone. When she arrived in America, she was taken in by state agents, but she ran out of bathroom and went to Chicago to her uncle Emilio, a man with a past as dark as her father's. At first, she held it together, showing no sign of weakness. But when Emilio pulled her into his arms, the dam finally broke. Catalia sobbed, her small hands clutching his shirt. The weight of her loss, her rage, and her fear all came crashing down. Then, some days later, when Emilio asked her what she wanted to be, Catalia told him, a killer, and demanded to train her. He agreed to it. 15 years passed. In California, Catalia intentionally crashed to a police car, and got herself arrested and placed in the women's section of a heavily guarded prison, where she had a target, an inmate no one could reach. But Catalia wasn't just anyone. From inside a locked cell, she executed the hit flawlessly. A single, silenced shot. The target was dead. The blame? Placed perfectly on an unsuspecting prison guard. By the time the authorities put the pieces together, she was already gone. That night, she went to the apartment of Danny, a painter who saw her only as Jennifer. He knew nothing of her real life, only the parts she allowed him to see. In his arms, she wasn't an assassin. She wasn't a killer fueled by vengeance. For a few fleeting hours, she was just a woman. But she knew the illusion wouldn't last. It never did. FBI Special Agent Ross arrived at the prison, scanning the crime scene with a hardened gaze. Another body, another execution-style killing. But this wasn't just any murder, it was part of a pattern. The 22nd in 4 years. The killer always left a mark. The Catalia flower. The tag killer, they called them. Meanwhile, in New Orleans, CIA agent Richard arrived at a sprawling, heavily guarded villa. Inside was the man he had come to see, Don Luis Sandoval, once a feared cartel boss, who ordered to kill Fabio, now living under U.S. protection in exchange for information. Richard showed him the prison hit, but Luis barely glanced at the screen. "Not my problem," he said coolly. But as soon as the agent left, Luis's expression darkened. He knew who was behind this. "Catalia," he muttered. She was coming for him. Luis turned to Marco, his most trusted killer. His voice was calm, but his meaning was clear. "Handle it." Agent Ross stood before his team. "The tag killer has struck again," he announced. "The pattern is the same. Someone inside that jail carried out the hit, and we need to find out who." His agents exchanged glances. 22 bodies, 4 years, and still no solid lead. But Ross wasn't giving up. Meanwhile, across the city, Catalia met with Emilio. "What the hell are you doing?" he snapped. "You're making too much noise." She said, "I won't stop until Luis is dead." Then, he handed her a new assignment. A hedge fund manager who had stolen billions and fled the country. Now, powerful people wanted him gone. "Finish this first," he told her. "Then we talk about Luis." Back at the FBI office, some agents whispered their suspicions. "It's her," one said. "Catalia Restrepo." Ross frowned. "A woman? Pulling off hits like this? No way." But deep down, doubt crept in. If it was her, she was unlike any killer he had ever seen. In Mexico, a lavish mansion stood like a temple to greed. Inside, the target indulged in his stolen wealth, surrounded by beautiful women and exotic luxuries. Among his prized possessions, an enormous aquarium filled with sharks. Catalia was already inside. She had slipped through the water, emerging from beneath a hidden glass cover. Silent. Lethal. The man stirred in bed, something feeling off. As he sat up, his eyes widened in horror. Across his chest, scrawled in ink, "Thief," heart-pounding, he stumbled through his mansion, only to find all his guards dead. Then, a gunshot exploded in his legs as he collapsed. Another shot. Straight to the chest. His body teetered backward, falling into the open aquarium. The water turned blood almost instantly as the sharks ate him alive. Catalia watched as another name crossed off her list. Ross sat at his desk, staring at the tag killer's signature, the Catalia flower. A mailman passing by mentioned, "That flower only grows in Colombia." Ross's mind clicked. He immediately tried pulling open cases from Colombia but hit a CIA jurisdiction. Meanwhile, in Chicago, Marco wasn't waiting. He ordered his men to search door to door, hunting Catalia like an animal. Unaware of the growing danger, Catalia found herself in Danny's arms again. He wanted more than just passion, but she kept him at a distance, afraid that getting too close would put him in harm's way. Later, Catalia met with Emilio, only to be met with fury. "You're reckless. 8 dead in a bar and one of them was his friend. You're retired," Emilio said. Catalia's expression didn't change. She told him she will not stop until Luis is dead. Across town, Danny made a mistake. He showed a picture of Jennifer to a friend, asking if he could verify her identity. The friend sent it to his sister-in-law, a cop, for a background check. When Danny wasn't looking, the cop forwarded the photo. At the FBI office, Ross's computer suddenly pinged. He opened the alert. Catalia's face stared back at him. He quickly pulled up the prison security footage. It was a perfect match. The tag killer had a name. And now he had a lead. That evening, as Danny was talking to Catalia, he mentioned the photo, while the FBI was tracking the phone. "I showed it to a friend," he said. "Who did they send it to?" she demanded. But it was too late. Outside, the apartment was surrounded. SWAT was already moving in. Without a second thought, Catalia bolted, activating a pre-planned escape route. She slipped through vents, climbed across rooftops, and disappeared into the night before the FBI could breach the door. Her next stop was Emilio's place. But the moment she stepped inside, she found him tied to a chair, his body beaten, lifeless. Tortured. Killed. Rage consumed her. Hours later, Ross walked into his apartment. He felt it. Someone was there. He turned, and his breath hitched. "Catalia. You want to catch the tag killer," she said, voice steady but lethal. "Then go after Don Luis. He's the real target." Ross hesitated. "Ask Richard," she continued. "Get the information, or I'll make sure your family dies first." He had no choice. The next day, Ross confronted Richard. "Where's Don Luis?" he demanded. Richard smirked. "That's classified." Before Ross could argue, gunfire exploded through the room, which was a sniper from another building. Pale and shaken, Richard finally cracked. He slid a paper across the table. An address. Don Luis had nowhere left to hide. Catalia arrived at Pepe's garage. Pepe had been Emilio's most trusted friend, and now, he was gone too, killed by Marco. She moved through grabbing weapons and ammunition. Then, her eyes landed on Pepe's 2 attack dogs. She took them. Armed and ready, she set out for Don Luis. The assault on his mansion was swift and brutal, turned into full-blown carnage as she tore through his men with deadly precision. One by one, they fell. Then, she found Marco. There were no words, just a fight to the death. She overpowered him, driving a gun barrel deep into his neck. As Marco took his final breath, she grabbed his phone. Meanwhile, Don Luis was already fleeing, scrambling into a van. He sped toward the gates. Then his phone rang. He answered, breathless. Catalia's voice was calm, chilling. "Eat." From the back of the van, growls turned into vicious snarls. The trained attack dogs lunged, tearing into Don Luis as he screamed. Catalia stayed to listen, as her vengeance finally complete. Danny was taken into custody by Ross and the FBI. Danny knows little and tells them so. Ross says, while he is not under arrest, he still has questions to answer. Danny asks for coffee, and Ross goes to get it. Danny gets a call from Catalia. She tells him she's okay and they have 40 seconds before they trace the call. He asks for her real name, and she tells him it's Catalia. Danny asks, "Will my little bird return one day?" Catalia tells him, maybe one day she can. Danny has only seconds now. "I love you," Danny says, which makes Catalia tear up. Ross orders him to give over the phone, but Catalia hangs up before he can get anything from her. Ross stares at the phone and tells Danny he's free to go. Catalia puts her sunglasses on and gets on a bus for a destination unknown.